hopefully this is helpful. Sorry if it isn't. If you feel like you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Ceresa, or Dr. Hine, or myself. Maybe we can work something out in case there's something that's not clicking. But yeah, just hope this helps a little bit. And if it doesn't, let me know what I can do. All right, now that that was out of the way, we'll move on to this problem. To start with here, we're going to do volume of distribution and clearance. So volume of distribution is a really important pharmacokinetic concept because it tells you how extensively a drug will leave the bloodstream and distribute to tissues. So I mentioned before in my rambling, I believe, there was like hydrophilic drugs are not going to have too high volume of distribution compared to a lipophilic drug, which will distribute into tons of different tissues and have really high volumes of distribution because of that. Volume of distribution is not a real anatomic volume. It's this proportionality. It's like this. It's the amount of drug. It's a proportion of like the amount of drug in the body to the concentration of it measured in your plasma, your blood. So, a lot of words, but the basic definition, the basic formula for it is volume of distribution. I always do VD, because some people do V, just volume, but I'm just stuck with this for the rest of my life, I'm sure. So volume of distribution is the amount of drug in the body divided by the plasma concentration of the drug. So amount of drug in body divided by plasma concentration. So let's say we gave a patient a 200 milligram IV bolus of a drug. Immediately after dosing that, they got a plasma concentration of that drug in the blood, the plasma, of 10 milligrams per liter. You just plug it in here. So VD, volume distribution, equals, you do 200 milligrams divided by 10 milligrams per liter. So you get a volume distribution of 20 liters here. So this volume distribution of 20 liters would suggest that this drug that they just administered is mostly staying in extracellular fluid and plasma, and it's not distributing too much into tissue, it's not too lipophilic, for instance. So that's what that means. So elimination rate constant this is all building towards measuring the clearance of a drug in the body. So next thing that you need is elimination rate constant. Elimination rate constant, which is K equals the natural log of 2 divided by your half-life. You don't actually need to know about the natural log of 2 part. A lot of people just do 0.693. It's the same thing, and you don't have to deal with natural logs either. We're typing that in your calculator. Just do 0.693. Let me actually just get rid of that. There we go. T divided by half-life, T1 half. So for these elimination rate constant problems, questions may give you a half-life. You need to figure out a half-life, but regardless, the only thing you need is this half-life. So let's say we're given a half-life of 7 hours. So the half-life of this mystery drug is 7 hours. So just plugging in 7 hours into the half-life here, and then that comes out to roughly 0.099 1 over an hour, which converts to which rounds to 0.10, which can be interpreted as about 10% of the drug is eliminated per hour. 10% per hour. If I got, for some reason, like 0.2, this would be 20% per hour. If I got 0.3, 30% per hour, you get the gist of it there. So that's elimination rate constant. Clearance, or CL, the formula for that is the elimination rate constant multiplied by the volume distribution. And it's a formula that usually you build up to. Like sometimes you're given the clearance. A lot of pharmacokinetic problems that I've been told to solve, it'd be a situation where you build up to it, right? So first you have to find the volume distribution. Then you have to find the elimination rate constant. And then with both of them together, you can actually solve for your clearance now. So with this, we're just going to use the volumes that we have here. So we have a volume distribution of 20. So you have 20 multiplied by, over here, elimination rate constant of 0.1, 0.1, and that gives us a clearance of 2 liters per hour. So this drug, which you gave 200 milligrams of, immediately after giving it, it had a plasma concentration of 10 milligrams per liter, so we knew it has a volume distribution of 20. Then we were given that in 7 hours, it has a 7-hour half-life, so we were able to calculate the elimination rate constant of this mystery drug because of that as 0.10, so it's 10% of the drug is gone per hour. Then we're able to bring them together, our volume distribution and our elimination rate constant, plugging into the formula here, and we're able to see now that the clearance of the drug, 2 liters per hour, is 2 liters of plasma of drug is cleared every hour. So pretty quick. Another thing that we can do is bringing another step into it. Again, I'm telling you, these pharmacokinetic problems, they do these steps. They love to just build on each other. And it can get crazy if you are like 7 or 8 problems deep and you missed one thing and all of a sudden everything is wrong. Just be careful while you're out there. So concentration at steady state. The formula for this one, simplified, you have dose divided by tau. All right, this is actually too far up, some space. Dose divided by tau, and then tau is the dosing interval. So how often do you give a drug? So let's say concentration at steady state equals dose divided by tau, and then that will be divided by the clearance. Again, I keep telling you, if everything builds on itself, don't mess up one thing or else everything messes up. Let's say dose 200, so 200 milligrams, and let's say we're going to do a 12-hour dosing interval. I'm sorry, I didn't say this. Tau is usually in hours, just because that's like convention. And I say our clearance is 2 liters per hour. I actually did not do this one beforehand, but I can just do it all on my phone. And that gives us a concentration at steady state of 8.3 milligrams per liter. So yeah, we had a concentration steady state for this drug of 8.33 milligrams per liter. Assuming, as I said, it's going to be continuously given at a dose, at the same dose it's being given at 200 milligrams, and that the clearance doesn't change. And this gets complex, soapbox again, as if you haven't had enough of them. This gets complex if someone has kidney damage. or their liver's having an issue. Then you get into a realm where you need to figure out like the clearance of the kidney and the clearance of the liver, and then like adding them together, or like there's layers to this. All right, so concentration, steady state, volume distribution, elimination constant, clearance, all leading to this concentrated steady state problem. All right. Just collecting my thoughts. The next thing that we're going to do is Cmax, Cmin, loading dose, and concentration, because I forgot to add that at the very beginning. But it's pretty simple, all of it. So what is Cmax? So we just went through volume distribution, clearance, elimination rate constant, and then using all those to find the concentration at steady state. And then there's a couple other values that you can get. And this is, again, like part of the list that I think was provided. I forgot by which pharmacology professor, but it's like the list of formulas and equations. So this is one of them, Cmax. The maximum concentration of a drug in the body. So for IV boluses, this is the most simplest. For IV bolus, the highest concentration of a drug in the body when you're giving it IV is the moment that you give it. So Cmax equals the concentration at 0. Simple as that. This does not get quite so simple for oral medications, which I'm going to leave in the hands of explaining. I'm going to leave that to our pharmacology professors to explain better. And if anyone has any issues, maybe I could help as well. But for oral medications, this depends on the Cmax, the maximum concentration of a drug orally, will depend on absorption rate and bioavailability. And I just realized I have the perfect thing to show you about this. Cmax, it gets a lot more complex when you start talking about oral formulations and how is that oral formulation of a drug absorbed? How does it pass through first pass metabolism with the liver? How does it interact in the liver? Is it a prodrug? Is it not a prodrug? All kinds of nuances come into play. That is, though, a little bit too serious for my session here today. So we're just going to say that Cmax equals C0 for IV boluses, and that for oral it depends. And then we'll leave it in the hands of Dr. Saressa and Dr. Hine to teach us that. Anyway, tangent done. Now we can talk about Cmin. So the minimum concentration of a drug in the body. For this one, it can be calculated from Cmax. So Cmin equals, I believe it's Cmax, yes, okay, yeah. Cmax multiplied by E, and then up here, in the exponent, it is negative K tau. All right. So, breaking it down. To get the Cmin, you can actually mathematically calculate it by getting, if you have the Cmax somehow, or if you can look at a graph that's given to you in a case-based problem, and you can see what the Cmax is at a certain time, then you know what the Cmax is. Anyway, Cmax multiplied by E to the negative KT. So the negative K, that is our elimination rate constant, which I covered earlier. So you could have a problem where they don't even give you the elimination rate constant. They just tell you a half-life, and then you have to calculate from that. Anyway, so you get the negative K, and then you multiply that by our tau, or the dosing interval. So for this, I'm just going to plug in some givens. So let's say our miraculous Cmax value is 12 milligrams per liter. So we have a Cmax of 12 milligrams per liter, and then our E, and then we have our elimination rate constant. Let's say our elimination rate constant is 0.1, like we got beforehand. And then let's say our tau, also, I'm not very creative, let's just say it's the same thing, it's 12 again. So you plug all this in. So 12 multiplied by e to the negative 1.2, and then that would give you a value of 3.6 milligrams per liter. So you can mathematically, through elimination rate constant and dosing interval, determine the minimum concentration of a medication if you know it's max, if you know it's Cmax. Just clinically, you can, if you know what the concentration at steady state should be, and you know their volume distribution, then you can multiply them together and get the loading dose, which is the initial amount of medication that you should give to reach the concentration in steady state faster. So again, just a plug and play thing. Let's say the concentration at steady state is 8, and then volume distribution of 50. Multiply them together, and you know you have a loading dose of 400 milligrams. This one is just the concentration. So to find the concentration of a drug, for that one, you're going to be just dividing the dose by the volume. So the concentration at 0 equals the dose that you give divided by the volume. The dose we gave is 120 milligrams, and let's say our volume is 24 liters for this one. So you would divide these together, and you know your your concentration would be 5 milligrams. 5 milligrams per liter. So combining everything, I'm going to put down a couple givens, and then I'm going to calculate it down. So givens. So I have these 4 things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the elimination rate constant. So I'm going to go down here. Elimination rate constant is K, 0.693 divided by my half-life of 6 hours. So I'll plug this together, and I'll get a K of 0.1155. Okay, so K equals 0.1155 hour to the negative 1. So what does that mean? Every hour, 11.55% of my drug is cleared. So now I have a elimination rate constant, 0.1155, and I also have a volume of distribution that was given to me. I can now calculate the clearance of this. So I'm going to go over here to do that. So clearance equals the elimination rate constant, 0.1155, multiplied by the volume distribution that we given of 30 liters. That will give us a clearance of 3.47 liters per hour. So we've just been able to calculate our elimination rate constant. Now we'll be able to calculate our clearance. And now I can calculate the dose, the maintenance dose. So how much of the medication we need to give per hour in order to get to this steady state. So for maintenance dose, that formula, I'm sorry, I didn't actually show that formula before. This formula to get maintenance dose is dose equals the steady state concentration multiplied by clearance, and then multiplied by tau. So we plug and play. We know our concentration steady state that we want to get is 12. So 12 multiplied by 3.47 multiplied by our dosing interval of 8. So you put that all together, and you get a maintenance dose of 333 milligrams. Now, 300, a little caveat I want to put to this 333. I guarantee you are not going to find manufacturers of medications that are going to look you in the eyes and say, yeah, we have 333 milligram tablets. Right? That's pretty rare. A lot of manufacturers do things in whole numbers and not this like odd stuff. So when you get values like this, you have to understand that the medication that you're going to find or the medication that you're going to be prescribing for a patient, it's not going to be that value. It's probably going to be 325 or 350 milligrams, if I had to guess. And if it's, not 3,000, 325 milligrams or 350 milligrams, if you're lucky. It could also be a medication that's dosed in hundreds of milligrams. So it could be 100, 200, 300. And so you have to decide if what's better, going to 400 milligrams or going to 300 milligrams. That's something that you're going to have to decide. But that's in the future. But we're going to say that in this wonderful world that we live in, this medication becomes in a perfect 325 milligram tablet. Also, another thing about this, you can have situations where it's 325 milligrams, or no, sorry, let's say it only came in 250 milligrams. So it's either 250 milligrams or 500 milligrams, and you just calculated it out that you need 333 milligrams. What do? One thing that you can do is actually increase your dosing interval, because you can't really control the clearance too much. This is like the body of the person's clearance. But you can't, and this you can't really control either. This is the concentration that they need to reach in order for the medication to be effective. But what you can control is how often that you give it your tau. So you can have situations where, let's say it's 250 milligrams or 500 milligrams, and you can either select 250 milligrams and give it more often, or you can select 500 milligrams, a higher dose, and just give it less often. That's just some extra nuance to have in your brain circulating around in there as we go forward into our medical training. Okay, so anyway, now that we know, in this world that we live in, there's a 325 milligram of this medication called unobtainium, and we know that I can dose unobtainium by 325 milligrams every 8 hours to get a concentration at steady state that is roughly 12 milligrams per liter. It's going to be a little bit less than that because it's not exactly 333, but we do the best that we can. So the next thing that we do, because we don't want to wait 4 to 5 half-lives for this medication to reach peak effectiveness, we can calculate a loading dose for this individual. So again, loading dose is going to be our concentration at steady state of 12 multiplied by our volume. So we have our concentration at steady state. We want to get to 12 milligrams per liter, concentration at steady state. And we're multiplying that by our volume, which was 30. And this will give us a recommended loading dose, if we don't want to wait 4 to 5 half-lives, of 360 milligrams. How this works is that a regimen that we can do is start the patient off with, and you can build a regimen off of this now that we have a loading dose and a maintenance dose. So what we can do is we could say, let's give the patient 350 milligrams to start. 350 milligram tablet once to start. And then we have prescribed to them 325 milligrams every 8 hours. And then we prescribe to them a 325 milligram capsule Q 8 hours. So with this, you would achieve target concentration of 12 milligrams per liter faster than you would otherwise, and with the loading dose, 350 milligrams, and you have a regimen for them to follow their medication of 325 milligrams capsule every 8 hours. All right. So that was a lot. And this is super. I tried to keep it as simple as I can, but I also introducing a little bit of nuance. This might be too simple. If it is, sorry. I just wanted to make something that was how I work through these problems and how I see these problems. I would definitely, though, keep an eye on what Dr. Hine and Dr. Saressa go over in the upcoming pharmacology lectures next week. Like next week, I've gotten the impression that it's a lot of pharmacology stuff, and then we have our TBL that's going to be Tuesday, the week after next. That's going to be like the pharmacology TBL. I just want to put something out there before we have those lectures. It's maybe like I wouldn't call it a primer, but like maybe something to warn you before we actually get there. So yeah, if anything comes up, reach out. You guys all should have my phone number, or send me a message wherever. And yeah, good luck, y'all.